Hey guys, welcome back to Westeros Weekly, the show that answers your biggest questions about Game of Thrones. I'm Filup Molina, and here with me this week is...
Erik Voss!
Boom.
This is the second of two preview episodes that we're doing before the 8th season premiere on April 14th.
It is almost here, which is nuts. A reminder that this show is now a podcast. You can get this, also Erik's Game of Thrones episode breakdowns that he's going to be doing throughout the season, and our debrief show, all in audio form. They come out earlier on the podcast streams than the videos do on YouTube. So, for instance, if you guys are like the kind that are going to be tweeting at Erik, where's the effing breakdown? Just get on your podcast app and subscribe to the Westeros Weekly podcast specifically. You can do that on iTunes, Himalaya, wherever you get your podcasts. And here's the truth of it. It's really important at the beginning of a new podcast that we get a new subscription. So if you're watching this, even if you prefer the video version, please go to iTunes and subscribe to this podcast. It helps us out a lot with doing more of these.
Yeah, just helping new Rockstars in general talk more about this stuff for you. Yeah.
All right, let's start as we always do. The big question.
Oh, no! Oh, look at those pearly whites.
A three-eyed raven upgraded from two eyes last week.
Eyes can be white, too. What did this raven ask us? Big question. What does the Night King want?
Right.
Great question.
So every week we start with the big question. This is the question that we're really going to go into this episode. Later on, we're going to go into more questions that you guys sent to us on Twitter with the hashtag Westeros Weekly. Obviously, there are so many going into this season, but we're going to start specifically. This one actually came from one of you guys at Bacon Awesome Love. What does the Night King want? This is kind of like the big question of what's his real plan? Like we've never known his plan because he don't speak.
He never talks, and he's not even in the books either, so there's another version of the character that's in the books we'll talk about later, but really this has just been the threat that's been from the very first scene of the entire series. White Walkers have been this looming presence now. I guess you could say they're a booming presence. They're like taking down the wall. The Night King has a dragon. They're headed south. They're headed for Winterfell. They're a full-blown opponent for all the living characters on the show, an existential threat for everyone who's currently living and breathing. And we don't know exactly what his agenda is, but we have to assume that it's something more than just global conquest or destruction.
If it were something else, we could certainly be worried that would be as lame as that, right? Where it's just like, I want global conquest of a made-up planet. I don't think it's gonna be that. I think something that Game of Thrones has done really well, especially honestly the show, is always bring things backward to the characters, and that it's actually our characters that we're already familiar with that are the most important in the overall events of Westeros. So that's kind of the route we're going to take here. If you're wondering what's his greater plan, we think, at least, it's actually directly tied to a character on this show that currently exists and we know the name of. So there's a reason the Night King is, he's this evil ancient force. He's coming south now after thousands of years,
why
right?
Now?
Yeah, he could have done this at any point when they were much weaker, maybe before there were dragons around, right? Which is a big threat. So it makes sense that that for some reason it's tied to the people who are alive right now, and also just genuinely, that's better storytelling, right?
Yes.
It'd be like if you're watching Halloween and you're like, oh man, Mike Myers is such a threat, and then suddenly like a Sharknado comes in and it ends the movie for you. It'd be like, why did that happen? Unless instead it's like, no, this Sharknado is motivated by the character. Like the initial shark is who created Michael Myers at the beginning of the whole thing. Right. We just want that to tie backward.
Yeah, some of you could say, well, it's purely a seasonal thing. The Night King's just coming south because it's the first time we've had a long night level winter. But then it's just like, well, if it's just natural forces, then it's like, oh, well, the shark attacked Amity Island just because it was summer. Like, that's not as exciting.
And Jeeper just did his creeper just because it was 28 years later. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So what's our first theory of what do we think would be the most satisfying character that might be the object of the
true
Night
motivation
King's,
for
affections?
Well, I think obviously we have to go directly to the person we've seen him kind of bitchy glare at the most, which is Jon Snow.
Yes.
So the multiple times that these guys have faced off, I think it's really interesting that the Night King was like unstoppable, and yet he didn't kill Jon Snow.
Yes.
It feels like multiple times Jon Snow could have died, other than the time he died, but he still could have died. And it feels like maybe this is just a real theory mode here. Night King doesn't want to kill Jon Snow. It could be, obviously, there's a bunch of different reasons. One is kind of like maybe he wants to work with Jon Snow. Maybe he wants to get Jon Snow in a certain scenario, and then maybe Jon can come to his side or become an heir. But I actually think if you think about the fact that Jon Snow is kind of on this path that feels unfinished, right? He's been resurrected before, which might be essential to where the Night King wants to place Jon Snow. Then this could all make sense as part of Jon potentially becoming Azor Ahai, or the prince that was promised.
Yes.
If Jon is on this destiny path that has all these requirements, it could be that he needs to be placed in an exact certain status where he has accepted what I'm going to call the mantle of Azor Ahai, right? He's not already Azor Ahai. He needs to, that prophecy goes with killing his baby mama, right? Like there's a lot of very specific things that need to happen. That might need to be exactly who Jon becomes, and then the Night King can either try to turn him or kill him or something, but it's all about Jon actually has to achieve that status first.
That's interesting. And maybe we could be looking at a scenario where the Night King, because he seems to be a green seer, one of the people in the Game of Thrones universe who can see into the future and see events before they happen, as Jojen Reed and Bran is it possible that the Night King knows that his death is imminent and is looking for this heir to replace him to lead the White Walkers? And that's the way that Jon could vanquish the forces of the Night King, by becoming a new leader and taking them back north. There's this idea that Jon could follow in the same steps of Cold Hands in the books, but they merged the character with Benjen Stark in the show. And the way Benjen Stark had that kind of half-white appearance, is
mulatto.
A different phonetic pronunciation of white. He said that he was stabbed in the heart with dragonglass when he was about to die, and that allowed him to stay in this weirdly pseudo-immortal state. And some people are thinking that could be Jon's fate, and the way that he has been brought back to life before, and the way that the Night King was created by the Children of the Forest by being stabbed in the heart with a dragonglass blade, that could be Jon's fate, and he could fill in to become the new Night King, or the Night's King, which we'll talk about more in this episode, and become the new leader of the White Walkers. And
kind of moving on to our next person that I think this could be about, but it still connects here. Let's remember, the reason I was saying that maybe Azor Ahai is a mantle that you can earn or achieve is because maybe no one currently has it. The Night King is down to wait until Jon has it, but he doesn't kill Jon early because Jon will not have become Azor Ahai yet, and then maybe somebody else can become Azor Ahai. So he's waiting for someone to become officially Azor Ahai, and then he can kill them. But for example, let's say Jon does go down. Well, the Azor Ahai prophecy is very 2019. It's gender neutral.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah,
it could be anyone. So
yeah.
That
Miss Sunday said it was prince or princess as a technical
exactly. Yeah, in the so it could be Daenerys.
Yes.
Daenerys could actually be the princess that was promised. She has a lot of things that line up with the prophecy as well. So kind of same idea, but maybe his whole motivation is waiting till she ends up as Azor Ahai and then taking her down because she's the only one that could potentially stop him.
Right, and she does have dragons, and some are saying like he didn't really know dragons existed in their full form this way with the three that she had until more recent seasons of the show. But again, if we assume that he's a green seer, that he can see things that are happening all over Westeros and Essos, then maybe he knew that these dragons existed. There's also the long-running debate over what is the true sources of magic in this show. Is it the return of the White Walkers that are reactivating formerly dead magic, or is it the return of the dragon eggs? Is it like the egg or the king, which came first, right?
Chicken.
But the dragon eggs, I feel like, are this kind of sleeping magic that came from Essos, somewhere deep in the Shadowlands, and the Night King possibly saw these dragon eggs there as a looming presence, because of course dragons existed throughout the Targaryen dynasty for years and years, but they were dying out. They were becoming weaker and weaker over generations.
Little baby dog-sized dragons.
Right, yeah, and then they were sickly and they would die, But in this case, maybe he's like, oh, this is going to reemerge as a major threat to my power, and I have to destroy or consume this superpower, and he's already done it with one of the dragons, and maybe his goal is to do it with the other two.
Daenerys' dragons are similar, at least, to Balerion and these ancient dragons that are known to be these huge threats. So it is kind of, there's been a reawakening in the dragon force.
Yes.
So he could potentially have suddenly care because this is legit magic that's going on, and maybe he wants to wield all of the magic. He clearly has his own kind of ice-based magic, which could mean why also, I'm just going to remind everyone, the wall was supposedly protected by a magical barrier as well as just being real cold. So
and very tall and thick.
Yeah, exactly, and wall-ish. So it might not have just been fire that was needed to take it down, but specifically a kind of magical fire that was being wielded by the Night King. That kind of could be one kind of microcosm of his overall plan of, I need to wield all of the magic under my power in order to achieve my plan. So maybe he actually needed to wait until there were dragons of a certain status around again so he could wield them, so he could cross the wall.
And then his ultimate plan there, if we just assume that dragons are a tool to get to his greater plan, his plan, if we assume it's Daenerys, would just be to take out the person who could potentially be a check on that power as someone who has a nuclear codes,
they're
essentially.
her children, right, too. It's like, hey, I need your son to do this crazy thing. It's kind of like, no, these are my kids. Like, no, thank you. So he has to kill her, obviously, in order to take them. Yeah.
Well, there's another potential source of magic that could be his main target, Bran, right? Brandon Stark, or young Bran.
Yeah. So obviously these two are linked pretty intensely, right? And I think if you kind of go back to season 6 is when they have their interaction, and the Night King suddenly and violently gropes Bran, and it catches Bran off guard, but it leaves a mark that Bran will show you on a doll if you need. But there was clearly some sort of transference in that moment, and it could be some sort of power transference, honestly.
Okay, yeah.
So there is the fact that Bran is the three-eyed raven at this point. The three-eyed raven comes with its own magical abilities tied to the children of the forest.
Yes.
So again, it kind of goes with that same theory of, if the Night King already has his own magic that he's wielding, but he kind of wants to be the one vessel of all magic, then he's maybe after Bran, who is the current wielder of the most strong opposing force of magic, and also the magic that probably made him.
Yes. And that's a good point, because the Children of the Forest, we saw in season 6 in this flashback, the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers. So it was a big reveal that they created them as this white weapon of mass destruction, right, in their war with the First Men back in ancient times. And it ended up being this kind of thing that blew up in their faces, maybe because they found out White Walkers have this way of reproducing and growing their numbers out of their own control, and became a threat that, in the way that you could argue nuclear power has become a threat to our own existence.
And blows up in our face. Yeah.
So we might be seeing a scenario where the Night King feels some kind of anger at his own existence and is going after the Children of the Forest, and maybe the three-eyed raven is the human link that he has with the Children of the Forest, and Bran, as a new three-eyed raven, is his new target because he wants to get back at them.
And also he's the biggest threat.
Right. He has the actual real power that he has of sight to green seeing and connections with the natural world and the power of the old gods.
I like how epic this all sounds and based in prophecy and destiny and whatnot, but that you kind of also implied that it's rooted in self-hatred, where you're just why am I? Yeah. I hate me.
He looks at his reflection in a frozen pond and just shatters it.
Yeah. Stupid. Your stupid spiky hair.
He can't get his spike hair right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those frosted tips.
Yeah. But we should acknowledge the fact that this is going deep into theory, and the books seem to love to go into this backstory because they are books, and that's the point of books. We're talking about a show, and they have hinted at some of this deeper mythology. It will be very interesting to see if the show, interesting is my word to use for surprising or potentially polarizing with a lot of people who watch Game of Thrones, if the show decides to go this deep into theory for these final 6 episodes in order to provide some answers and payoff for people who have these questions. But it is a potential way that they could go. And we have a deeper possible theory for the direction the Night King could be going in regards to the Children of the Forest, if that is his main MO. Right.
Yeah. Isn't there also that theory with Bran where I know it's really out there, but that idea that Bran maybe warged backward into the first man who was turned into the Night King.
Yes. Bran equals Night King.
Exactly. The Bran equals Night King theory, where essentially he is fighting himself all these years later. And it's kind of now the Night King has to go back and stop the old version of himself from stopping the new version, that kind of complicated Back to the Future 2. kind of like time travel logic.
And like it's almost like that movie Predestination. You see the Ethan Hawke movie where he's fighting I am my own grandfather. That whole complicated idea, that thought experiment. And if this sounds crazy to you, we have made a video about it. I think we made a video about this right after season 7 ended. This is something that established by the show. Like history as we knew it had already been affected by time travel that happened later in the series. Hodor, the reason Hodor says Hodor over and over again is that his mind was essentially fried from a time that would later happen in the future where Bran went back in time to when he was a boy.
Right. It's
and told him to hold the door. Right.
Like logic or whatever, or the Slaughterhouse-5 kind of energy. But what if the being unstuck in time usually means essentially time travel through consciousness, but it often doesn't really change anything. Then there's kind of the quantum leap version of being unstuck in time where you hop around and you make these small impacts. And then there's kind of what's almost more realistic of Game of Thrones. It's like, oh, you enter someone else's brain where there already is a consciousness and you fry their brain by doing that immediately.
And there's evidence of this that you can get trapped in someone's body back in time, like in the sunken place, essentially. The old Three-Eyed Raven told Bran you can get trapped underneath the waves. Jojen Reed warned him about this. You can't warg for too long because you'll get trapped there. You could get trapped inside that body. Like Tobias in the Animorphs, he became a Nothlip. You get trapped in the body of a hawk. I'm going to work at Animorphs reference as much as I can. But there's also this, people tie this theory to lots of historical events in Westeros. People believe that the Mad King may have gone mad because it was Bran telling him in the past to burn them all, burn being the White Walkers, but then the Mad Kings just started to lose his mind the way Hodor, you could say, did, and just decided to apply that to Wildfire and all of his political enemies.
Right. It's interesting, this idea of Bran has a megaphone that's kind of too loud for humans to process. It reminds me of, is it in Dogma? Maybe where the voice of God is too overwhelming for people to hear it.
Oh, so their heads explode when they do it?
Basically, their heads explode, but that's what he's doing. Just like because it's kind of silly also. Bran's like, hey, maybe we should burn them all. And it's like 100 years earlier or something, like a guy goes nuts and kills a bunch of people because Bran just said that once.
And wouldn't that be ironic if the old gods, as the people of Westeros know them, are actually people from the future speaking to them from the future?
I mean, isn't that what being a god is in modern time? Is
like aliens helping Egyptians build the pyramids?
It's just not understanding, right? Yes. Like somebody came in and said some amazing shit.
Are you working in McConaughey from Interstellar into this?
I'll work in a McConaughey reference every time you do an Animorph reference.
Deal.
That's our deal.
But let's talk about maybe more broadly, the Night King could be aimed at the entire Stark family. So what's the idea with that?
So the Starks are one of these families that can be traced all the way back to the 1950s, or even before that. And they were some of the first men. And there is this, clearly we've already seen the idea that the Night King comes from the first men. Most likely, but it also could potentially be a Stark. He just straight up could be a Stark, right? There's that quote of Old Nan's where she's not talking about this version of the Night King. She's talking about the Night King in the books.
Apostrophe-S.
Which is could be the same character. We actually don't really know because the show doesn't mention that one and the book doesn't mention the Night King. So say it is the same one, though. Even Old Nan, who is the definitive, anything she says is true person, she's saying, people think he could be a Bolton, he could be an Umber, a Flint, but then she settles on, no, he was a Stark.
Yeah, the Night's King was a guy who was a Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and he decided he fell in love with either a White or a White Walker. It's not really clear, but he's one of these guys who basically betrayed the Brothers of the Night's Watch and became this mysterious, mythed about figure. But the idea is this guy was a Stark. So if the show might tether that link together and decide that the Night King, as we've seen on the show, is actually this guy. He's an ancient Stark and might have some kind of lingering grudge against the surviving current generation of the Stark family.
Yeah, which especially makes sense if you stick with that logic we were saying at the beginning of just keep the characters we already know, and so this idea of is the Night's King the same as the Night King? It's like it would kind of suck if they now brought out a character who's like, okay, this is gonna be hard to keep track of, but this guy, he's called Night's King,
right?
And they're gonna be very commonly confused. I don't think they're gonna do that.
Yeah, and the showrunners of the show, Benioff and Weiss, are studied academics when it comes to the books. They're the ones who got the show because they correctly guessed who Jon Snow's real mother was when they pitched it, the idea to George R. R. Martin. So the idea of that they had never heard of the Night King or might have misread it and created a new character called the Night King. There's going to be some greater influence, I believe, from the Night King as we've seen him on the show, from the character in the books. I wouldn't be surprised if there is some kind of backstory to him that could be connected to the Starks.
Well, and speaking of his potential backstory, there's a few things we know from the show. So let's say we do take some stuff from the books and we do connect back to the stuff we were talking about with Bran earlier, being connected to the Children of the Forest. I'm kind of thinking that, we're talking about the Night King's greater motivation. One element that, so great, we have these character motivations. One thing I'm wondering is, like, where's he headed, right?
Yes.
I don't think it's like a beachfront condo in Dorne.
Yeah.
Like, I think he actually has a very specific place he's trying to get to on the other side of the wall. I'm curious if maybe part of his plan is all about getting to the Isle of Faces.
Oh, right, yes.
Right. So if you guys don't remember, that's in the southern Riverlands, basically. And it could be where the Children of the Forest have run off because they were cast off and almost all killed.
Right.
If there are any Children of the Forest left, it could be where there's like a bunch of weirwood trees there.
Yes.
It's kind of like their networking closet,
Yes.
where like all the weirwood trees meet and you have to reset the weirwood trees when it goes down.
Yeah.
But it's also where the Children of the Forest and the First Men signed that initial treaty.
Yes.
And it also could be where the Night King was created. So if there's any kind of sacred, magical Native American burial ground where everything goes back to, it could be that place.
Yeah, we think that because I think it was some old breakdowns that we did where we saw that spiral symbol that the Children of the Forest use, and the Night King and the White Walkers have reappropriated it, and we found out that it's because the White Walkers were birthed from the Children of the Forest, and that's why they reuse their symbols. That place where the Night King was created, we don't know exactly where that was. We don't know if it was north of the wall. Mm-hmm. We don't know if it was somewhere south of the wall. And one theory is that could be on the Isle of Faces, where it was kind of the capital of the Children of the Forest. It's the last place where they ended up settling. And to this day, we don't know much about it other than like some cult of green men, I believe is what they're called, go out to
Scots.
They're the only ones who are allowed on that isle, and they keep up the weirwood trees, and they basically, I guess they're the guys who like light the torches under orchard trees to keep it. They keep it well kept. Mm-hmm. They're groundskeeper willies who make their way out to this isle, and that could be where the Night King is headed because that could be the last known location of the Children of the Forest, and that might be his true objective in order to eliminate this threat of these little horrible elves who created him and brought him into the world. That would be interesting. It might be a little random for people who are watching the show without as dedicated of an understanding of the books.
Sure, but at the same time, it's kind of like, hey, whatever happened to the Keeblers? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you were watching the show, it is one of the things that, we obviously, as we go through this season, we're going to be like wondering, hey, are they going to pay this off or going to pay that off? One of the things is kind of like, how about that whole involvement of the Children of the Forest, all the magic here? Or is it going to, I don't think it's going to stay so political.
Yeah,
I think go into this
guys
stuff.
Have some mix, but I feel like if it doesn't stay so political and doesn't go too much in the myth, I think then we're just talking about the main objective of the characters and their whole story arc with Jon and Daenerys and what their destiny is.
Yeah, and who they're going to end up with, which Jorah Mormont, I'm still hoping, just finds his way back in there.
And that actually could be the main objective of the Night King, is this connection between Jon and Daenerys, right?
Yeah, he's trying to join their friend zone.
Yes.
Yeah. Just all the people that are in line, waiting for a spot with Dany. Barristan Selmy he's gone.
Oh, he's
gone.
So
there's room.
You can't have too many suitors.
Yeah. Speaking from experience, Eric?
Well, in my experience, you can never have enough.
Yeah. But the point you're trying to make about if the Night King is motivated by not just Jon and not just Dany, but maybe their union, then you're talking baby.
Yes. The baby that will probably exist, right? I mean, those eyes that they gave each other during the boat sex, those are pregnancy
unprotected eyes. Yeah, you certainly.
You know right away when it happens, I've been told, right?
Yeah. Well,
and there's only one purpose to have sex, I've been
pop.
instructed, is to procreate.
Yeah.
I had really terrible sex education growing up. Backwards.
It does feel like in like narrative stories like this or whatever, like, any act of sex kind of results in a kid, and that kid is like destined for some amazing story.
Yes.
Unlike very much real life.
Well, we know that
or they're destined to host YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, baby. The Night King has a history of wanting male babies. He got them from Craster.
Oh, right, he does though.
Yes, he does. He kidnaps them. He converts them into. That's like his main way of procreation, because it doesn't seem like the White Walkers can procreate the traditional way, and this is the way that they can.
Well, there is a chance that that one who has the big staff and the horse, whatever, that could be a lady White Walker. We don't know. It's got nice hair.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, but as far as we know, we haven't seen any White Walkers who are women.
Right.
As far as we know.
Yes. And we don't know if this is a matter of like keeping their, because it seems like they live forever once they're created. I mean, the Night King is thousands and thousands of years old himself. So I think as long as they don't accidentally trip and fall into some dragon glass, they're going to be fine. But I think he just wants to grow his numbers, not just like create an army of undead whites, but
what if I give you a stronger push of maybe there's a reason like why he needs to grow his numbers, and it's not just the fact that I just want a literal bigger army. Maybe it's essential that, so say we were saying the Azor Ahai theories earlier of, you know, maybe Dany's Azor Ahai, maybe Jon's Azor Ahai. Really great argument for their baby to be Azor Ahai.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know that the Night King can do his little press on fingernail touch to your forehead to adults, but he certainly can do them to babies. So if that's Azor Ahai, the person that's destined to kill him, and he knows that that's the truth, then he's going back to the baby version. He's Terminatoring. Right?
Oh, right. He's like John Connor.
Yeah, or
he's
he's like the T-800 that's sent back to baby John Connor, or Linda Hamilton when she just offset. But just the idea of like taking out this threat when, you know, it's the Hitler theory.
Yes.
Right? If you could go back in time, you got to kill a baby Hitler. It's part of it. What's really interesting on that is, what if this baby is like baby Hitler, and like Night King is like, look, you guys don't know, this gets so much worse.
Wow. Night King did nothing wrong. Night King is the protagonist hero of the story, and it's really us who are the monsters.
Yeah, I really like you guys taking that quote of Erik saying the Night King did nothing wrong, and just making you pay for that for the rest of your career.
Oh boy. Yeah, that is an interesting take, right? Like a lot of people are saying this baby between Jon and Dany is, if not Azor Ahai or the Prince that was promised, is at least the Song of Ice and Fire, you know, literalized on the show. Some people are saying Jon is already that Song of Ice and Fire, so why does this baby need to also be the Song of Ice and Fire? But we just don't know the circumstances, or even if this baby exists, but we don't know what the circumstances. It'll be very interesting to see how that baby is born, if he does or she does come to pass, and what significance they'll have on the show.
There's also just a reminder that, you know, Stark blood does have magic to it. You know, that's why most likely Bran is able to warg, why they're able to have this special connection with the dire wolves, where they essentially are all wargs. Targaryen blood famously also has that connection to dragons. So it's not insignificant. It's not you know, Gilly's baby.
Right. It's not just any baby.
Yeah. It's a pretty significant baby. If that baby doesn't have, well, I love what we don't even know if this baby exists, but it's got to, because they had sex once.
Right. Yes.
But if it exists, it has to be super important.
Yes, I think it must be. And if it's not like the fusion of two magical bloodlines, it could just be the perception of the fusion of those that is enough of a threat for the Night King to want to take it out or bring it into his own clan and his own race.
I like the idea of the imagery you were just doing with your hands. Is like the Night King will deliver the baby, and he's like, "You got this, Dany."
Push,
exactly.
Push. Yeah.
7 centimeters.
I mean, it could be compared to Voldemort, right? Voldemort thought that Harry Potter was the greatest threat in the prophecy, so his thinking that Harry Potter was the threat ended up fulfilling his own prophecy and making Harry Potter the threat. It could have been what's his face, Longbottom, for all we knew.
No, unless it was puberty, powers of puberty. I don't think it would have been.
We just need J.K. Rowling to rewrite canon again to make sure.
Yeah, everyone's gay now.
Yeah, everyone's gay, and they make their poop disappear.
Yeah.
Oh boy!
If you're keeping up with that, that's great.
Yes.
All right. So moving on, we are going to get to more of your guys' questions. Oh my God, the ravens! They just collided into a cage. Okay, we're going to get to more of your questions in a second, and we're going to do some rapid fire ones.
Yes.
But new segment that we're going to bring up, the death pool.
Oh.
Yeah. So Erik and I each filled out a death pool. Well, we started our ideas on a bracket for a death pool, but we're going to talk through a little bit of our thinking here. But you guys can actually play along with us on GuessTheThrone.com. So we're going to pick who we think are going to live or die during this final season of the show. But there is still time for you guys to join. Just search for the Westeros Weekly Pool on GuessTheThrone.com, and then you just enter, and you can compare. We'll see your predictions compared to ours, compared to everybody else that enters. And obviously, we're going to give shout outs to the people that are performing the best. And we're going to give a prize to the ultimate winner. And it could be Erik's job.
Yes. Take it. Yeah. This if you can have a great guess the throne pool, and if it's better than mine, you know what? You deserve to have this job. You deserve to have a job that will never deal with Game of Thrones again, for the show will be done. Yeah. But if you can beat me on that, then my head's off to you.
So all right. So you guys go there and you kind of consider these names as we're going to go through and consider some of them right now. But we're just going to kind of like let you know our thinking on bracket stuff. We're not going to have the same bracket, by the way.
No.
Just so you know.
No, I don't want us to have the same bracket.
All right. It doesn't work out well for us. All right. Jon Snow. So live or die. I
think Jon Snow is. I think we're a yes on Jon Snow, and only because I think the show will want to make a statement about Jon Snow's behavior and reward him with the opportunity to live.
Right. He's adjusted and changed, and he's a character that literally had an oath to death, right? And then he still changed away from that oath and did the most amazing thing of sleeping with a wildling.
Yes.
But he showed that he was willing to bend, right? And bend the knee. Yes. I'm down also. I think Jon's going to make it. Also because, don't kill a dude twice.
Yeah.
Dany.
I think Dany is a goner. And I think the telltale moment for me is in season 7 when she had an opportunity to show that she was a wiser, more apt, and more able, deserving ruler, and she executed the Tarleys just to make
by
a point.
Fire.
And granted, the Tarleys, a lot of you guys pointed out in the comments, they had an opportunity to bend the knee and they still didn't. But they kind of forced her to that position where she had to execute them to make a point.
But also, cooking isn't like the only form of execution.
Right. She still had to bend toward her flair for the dramatic.
And I think Ned Stark executed somebody in the pilot, and we think he's the most noble guy out there, right? It's not the execution. It's the fact that she kind of tortured them.
I think her death will be something that will be used to motivate Jon into whatever the next final phase of his journey is.
Part of the potential prophecy, killing Nissa if that Jon is the prince that was promised. All right, this is a fan fave, so you could see it going another way. Tyrion.
Yes, I'm going to say Tyrion survives, and not only that, he becomes the most likely of the people we've seen to become ruler of whatever's left over of Westeros.
Interesting.
And most deserving. I think George R. R. Martin has, obviously, if you read the books, Tyrion's the best character to read his chapters. He's the character you're most excited for, has the best lines, seemed to be the wisest character on the show. And I think it would be a shame if George R. R. Martin's just like, you know what, no, it's not his story after all, and he doesn't deserve.
Well, that kind of is a slap in the face to the people that think that it's Samwell Tarly's story. Because a lot of people do. A lot of people think that
slapping them in the face.
A lot of people do think that it's like, this is all a story that Sam is telling in the future, right? And he's recording the story, the Song of Ice and Fire, and it's all he's the equivalent of George R. R. Martin. I just like that you're kind of like, or we just make it Tyrion.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they both can Sam is the guy who writes down this Song of Ice and Fire, and Tyrion is his historical source who he talks to.
Yeah, and then so Tyrion's a ruler. Sam shaves his head and starts speaking softly and becomes the Varys to Tyrion. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think I'm good on Tyrion surviving.
Me too. I think so too.
Yeah.
Arya. Okay. So I think that she is either going to, the bracket doesn't allow for this, but either going to disappear into the east. Into the west.
Yes.
The exact
west
opposite of what I said.
Yeah,
to see what's west of Westeros. She's essentially going to be the Christopher Columbus or something, or the Magellan or something of that world, or she dies.
Yes.
And she dies because she sticks too closely to needing to continue crossing off names on her list.
I think it's a good way to think of it. Some people are saying what kind of story is Game of Thrones going to be? Is it going to be like Lord of the Rings, which ended famously with Frodo sailing off into the sunset, and are we going to get that kind of ending for Arya? Or is it this new darker tale that George R. R. Martin, and he has said that while Lord of the Rings is probably his biggest literary influence on the show, and he loves Tolkien, he has made some deliberate moves to not make it this kind of Tolkien-esque allegory for the triumph of the human spirit. No, he wants to show the depths of human treachery. So is he going to lean more into that kind of early in the books and early in the series spirit of the show, and allow for characters to selfishly go after their ambitions even to their own bitter ends? And for me, I think that's the direction Arya is going to go. Even though George R. R. Martin has said in the past that he's like, I always pictured Arya being there at the end of the show or at the end of the books. I always thought Arya would be the one to survive.
George. Sorry, you're fading out there.
The show doesn't have to go in the exact direction that George R. R. Martin had for the end, and even George R. R. Martin has said that the ending of his books will be very different from the show anyway. So I think the show will decide to end Arya's this tale by having her go on some kind of kamikaze suicide mission,
Yeah.
some assassination mission, and
She
then
goes
she
AWOL.
gets her list complete, but then maybe has to write Arya at the top of the list and her final move and cross it out,
Yeah.
and allows herself to expire.
So I like that because it also is, we do there's a lot of movies out there about World War II, and it's kind of like everyone's so honorable, and maybe that's true. It was the greatest generation. People referred to it that way, but that's not the story that we've come to know here,
Definitely.
right? It's people that are like, yeah, maybe I'll fight in your war, even though it's like clearly the biggest threat of all time. Like Cersei is kind of like, maybe not, right? Our characters have selfish motivations, and I think it'd be weird if they all were like, all right, now we all need to join forces and humans versus white like that's not the show that that's not the story that George R. R. Martin is telling.
Yeah, I
Cool.
agree.
All right, so she dead?
I'm
That's what
saying she
thinking?
dead. Is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking?
Presumed dead.
So currently, Filup and I have exact same bracket.
All right,
listed.
Cersei dead. She gotta die.
Well, I will diverge for you just for the sake of this. I'm going to say Cersei survives, even though all my instincts are telling me that the show's going to kill her off. I think if I'm assuming that Arya is going to die, I think Cersei might survive. Just
I think
to
they go
give us
down
that slap in the
together,
face.
maybe.
That's probably a better way to say it. I
Yeah.
don't want to write live then, so I'm going.
You do live, I'll do die.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I could see that thing where like maybe she like somehow does survive, but then she has to like hide her true identity because everyone hates her now, and she has to like be a commoner now and like clean poop.
Yeah.
Cool. Sansa. This is a hard one for me.
Yeah, this is tough because I don't see a version of this show, but it just seems like the trajectory of the show in recent seasons has been to be like, oh no, Sophie Turner's the new star of this show. Get behind her. She's the able ruler. And I never
You're thinking
would
of the X-Men franchise as well.
yeah. I don't. The Game of Thrones that I know and love doesn't have Sansa as like a surviving hero at the end of it. But it seems like the Game of Thrones that has been the case in season 6 and season 7 will allow Sansa to survive.
Yeah, I think she'll live on that. I'll put live because I think that she'll be left with Winterfell and she'll have to keep ruling over Winterfell. There's not really anybody else that's a good person for that. And Jon doesn't even really seem to want to. So if anything, maybe Jon gets the Iron Throne, but she's still the Warden of the North.
Yeah.
Or Ward Lady of the North.
Yeah.
There's a different name for it. I don't remember what it is. So I'll put live.
Yeah, I'll put live as well.
All right. So we're just going to fly through some of these, but we're not going to commit to these answers, but let's just go real fast. I'll say, okay, so Bran, live or die?
I'm going to say die.
I'm going to say live.
All right.
Varys.
Die. He was promised to die. Jaime
Yeah.
Lannister.
Ooh, Jaime, if his arc is complete of redemption, die.
I'm going to say die for Jaime. Yeah.
Theon Greyjoy, die. Just please put that.
He's the Hamlet figure, right?
Misery.
And we've described his arc as that of Hamlet avenging his father, whose brother stole the throne from him.
I don't know. Hamlet didn't suffer this much. Like, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So die. Yara Greyjoy. Die. I think she'll go down in battle, probably protecting Theon or
I'm
something.
going to say live. I think
Theon saves her.
I think Theon and Euron are going to cancel each other out, and Yara will go on to become the rightful ruler of the Iron.
Oh, that's
Irons.
not a bad one. Yeah.
So Euron, I'm going to say, I don't think he's going to survive. I think he's going to have the sickest death in season 8. I think Euron's death is going to be disgusting and kind of like the Ramsay Bolton death of this season.
Oh, interesting. He's kind of earned it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll put die as well. Samwell Tarly, I think, will live.
Yes, I think he has to be the one to tell the story here.
Yeah. Let's see if there's so many names on this list.
Yeah.
I think we should just jump around a little bit. Grey Worm.
I think Grey Worm's going to die. I think he's going to die in the Battle of Winterfell, and we're all going to cry.
Me too. I think Missandei either could also go down like at the same time, a little Romeo and Juliet or something, or I don't know. And then who else is interesting on here? Melisandre? Die.
Yeah, I think Melisandre, because it was in that moment with Varys where she said, we'll see each other again. Or no, she said that to Arya, and I think Arya might be the one to kill Melisandre.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then of the names left, of course, again, you guys can be filling out your own bracket on guessthethrone.com. Look up the Westeros Weekly poll on there. But the last one I want to mention is the Night King still alive at the end of this thing?
Oh, yeah. See, I'm going to say...
Well, was he ever alive?
Right.
Yeah.
He's always been. But as the life that he currently has, I think will not be around at the end of the show. I don't think...
I think die.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So you guys should be filling out your bracket too. And we're going to give a shout out to whoever's doing the best on there. And we're going to give Eric's job to whoever does the worst.
I love this.
But back to your Twitter Q&A questions. And this is, oh God.
Whoa.
The effects are so real. Look at the 3 eyes on this thing. This is a very specific Simpsons-esque version of a 3-eyed raven.
Yes.
Cool. So what's a Twitter question? This is a lightning round of Twitter questions, by the way. You guys have sent it to us with the hashtag Westeros Weekly on Twitter. You can keep doing that. Here we go. Eric, fire.
All right, this is from, let's see, Daryl Young, BZ asks. Business, okay. Is Tyrion a Targaryen?
Ooh, good question. All right. So Tyrion's mother is Joanna Lannister, right?
Yes.
And we know that she got friendly with the Mad King, Aerys Targaryen, like real friendly. So there is rumors that they could have had an affair. And then on top of that, there's the fact that Tywin Lannister was not just so mean to him, but was always like, "You're no son of mine." I mean, he might have meant that literally, and it would kind of be a nice parallel to Catelyn Stark's energy with Jon Snow, where it's this like, "Look, I'll raise you, I'll feed you, but I'm very aware that you're some other dude's baby."
Right. Yeah.
Or some other woman.
I mean, and Tyrion, of course, led to her dying in childbirth, so there's really no way to know the truth. And now Tywin is dead as well, so we don't really know how he's connected. But some people are saying that Tyrion could be the third dragon rider. They said the dragon has 3 heads in that prophesied vision.
But now there's not 3 dragons, so it's like not quite
so
as
it
necessary.
Doesn't work as neat.
Also, maybe one secret reveal of a major character being a secret Targaryen the whole time might be already one too many, unless it's kind of like the Cylons of Battlestar Galactica. Sorry. I was gonna say Battlefield Earth. Very different property. But I don't know. Just because of the fact that Tyrion the Targaryen is like a stupid, funny thing to say to get the alliteration of that, they might do it. Like they did Drogon the Dragon on the show.
His name was Drogon.
Right. But it was a typo, and it's like, I'll keep it.
We'll stick with it. Not everyone can be a Targaryen. Okay.
All right. Let's see. Careful, flying and
I like
Raven.
that this thing probably already had 2 eyes. And we're like, hey, the third eye has to match the other 2.
I like how good the Ravens are at hovering. Just right above us,
not even flapping
like
wings.
A drone. All right, this one's from at Brian McDaniel Ashes. Brian McDaniel asks, does Dario Naharis show up in season 8?
Oh, that's a good question. He's one of these loose thread characters, kind of like how Gendry was and then showed up again. So will that happen for Dario? We know that Dario went off to join the Second Sons, a team or an army of mercenaries in Essos when he left Dany, and that he was left in charge of Marine, or he came from the Second Sons, and then he used his buddies and all the combined forces to take charge of Marine. And the Golden Company is now another sellsword army from Essos that is making their way to Westeros to join the army of Cersei and help defend King's Landing and whoever defeat whatever's left over. So maybe he could show up with the Golden Company. My feeling
is against Dany though.
That's what's kind of crazy about it. I think we're done with that character.
I think we're done with that actor. They'll show up if he shows up. It'll be a third act. I mean, this is where you get McConaughey and finally.
All right. You need another sellsword.
And now, as promised, you get an Animorphs reference.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh, Tobias. I understand. There's still a soul inside you. How did that show end? Didn't they ram the Visser ship? Yeah. It wasn't a show at that point. 2 seasons and done. Hey, let's reboot Animorphs, will we? It's such a great project.
You guys are here for Animorphs breakdowns, right?
You better be. All right, this is from MAE Fletch. Wants to know, will we hear the Night King talk?
Ooh.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't know that I want. It's like if the Jaws shark was
his
like,
name was Jaws.
Yes. But if he talked, right? If he was like such a great threat, you just kind of constantly see him, and he's like, "I'm gonna eat you," and you're like, "What?" We don't need that.
Yeah, I kind of want him to talk at one point and have a real silly sounding voice.
Yeah,
Danny DeVito,
but a really solid rap cadence.
For sure. Oh no,
another
what's
one.
Next?
Oh man, this is a busy Raven. Where are these Ravens coming from?
We gotta find out where he's keeping these.
I get it. Twitter birds. All right, this one's from at Dylan F. McKinnon asks, ooh, man, I kind of almost forgot about this at this point. Who wins Clegane Bowl?
Oh,
right.
Yes.
So Clegane Bowl, the race to the bottom of Cereal Bowl, the mountain and the hound.
Yes.
But no, so this is just kind of the idea that these two need to fight each other. They're brothers. They're tall. and anytime the two
they
tall
hate each
brothers,
other's guts.
yeah, that's part.
We saw
that's
them
important.
fighting in the tourney of the hand in the very,
Right.
or maybe not the tourney. It was the hand's
It was a
tourney.
different
celebrating
mountain,
Ned
but
Stark back. Yeah, different actor playing him, but they fought to defend Sir Loras Tyrell, and the hound just got all pissed off because he lost the joust, and
Cuts
it seemed
off
like
the
that
head
was
of
the
the horse.
first start of the battle because they had to go in there and the king called it to a stop. But they made a promise. He's like, "I'll fight you again someday, brother," and then he did. Can't see me, and then he jumped out of the ring, and then WrestleMania's got to be coming back at some point.
Right, and if it's going to be the character arcs that we're kind of always all hoping for, then it's the Hound will win that.
Yes.
But also it's this show, and the Mountain is already like a reanimated corpse.
Yes.
So I don't know. It could be like a really sad but truth, but the Mountain might win it.
Yeah. I think in this case it'd be best if they took each other out again.
Yeah.
Doing all battles to be kind of like with Brienne and the Hound, where it was kind of a standstill, a draw.
Yeah, a draw where the Hound's head gets crushed. It's like a watermelon.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. If you guys are hearing those caca sound effects, by the way, we paid a lot of money to get those real recordings.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. This is from @Monka S247 asked, does Jaqen Hagar show up? Ooh, Jaqen Hagar.
Yeah.
So the faceless man who gave Arya a coin that she's already used up.
Yes.
So he doesn't have that reason to show up anymore. But does he show up in the events of Westeros? He's in Bravos the last we saw, and dead kind of the last we saw.
Right, he's such a confusing guy. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm actually alive. No, you've actually killed someone else. He's never going to give you a straight answer to this one. There's also the mystery of like, why was he in captivity in the first place when Arya first met him in season 2? If he's supposed to be this badass ninja assassin.
Unless he wanted to be.
Unless he wanted to be. So we don't really know what this guy's story is, but I think Game of Thrones has told as much of his story as they're going to tell in the show, would be my guess.
I kind of hope we see him one more time, but it's a little bit like the fanboy part of me, not
Right.
because I think they definitely
He's not as much
will.
of a lingering loose thread as Nymeria was when we were asking, where did that direwolf go? Like we spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah.
And,
Though sick reveal, like right at the end, the Night King is about to kill Jon, and instead it hands Jon his hand and helps him up, and then takes off his face, and it's been Jaqen Hagar the whole time, and they become buds. Oh man,
yeah.
That's how it should end. You can have that. Yeah.
Okay,
That was a pained groan
You
from
getting
the
tired?
Raven. Kind of. All right. This is from @Turtles Tweets. Asks, will Arya finish her list? Ooh, what do you think? We kind of
I think yes. I think that is the
list that was
list when the bride in Kill Bill starts a list. You're setting up your structure for your character's journey, and you got to get back
Yes,
to it.
Chekhov's list.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think she'll at least get far enough down to it where we'll be down to 1 or something, and then like we said, the list might cost her own life.
Right. It could be like a big moral decision that she gets to at the end, where she has to decide, is finishing her list worth it? She's down to one last list, is killing Cersei or killing Melisandre or whoever else is on it, and maybe that's the way her character grows beyond these past conflicts and turns into someone new.
What's tough is that you also, she kind of has already done things like that, right? Like she left the Hound alive, but he technically was on her list. She'll probably re-encounter Beric Dondarrion, who's been on her list, Melisandre. I mean, so maybe it won't be the exact version of the list that we were most familiar with, but she has some depths to pay.
Yes, the list is going to come back for sure.
Yeah, I also like the idea that the dead people... Oh, sorry, one sec, Raven. I just had a quick point to make. The Raven's hovering above us. I just think it's funny that if she does get through all the lists and then the Night King just reanimates everyone from her list, damn it.
Yeah.
Just had to start all over again.
Unfurl the list.
All right, Raven, bring it in. Yeah, caca. All right. Dirty Raven. All right. Let's see.
He's a good Raven.
Damn dirty Ravens. I am Sandeep. SD asks, who will be the Shireen style? Oh no, the Edward Sheeran style cameo this season. Well, we could do both. We could Shireen Ed Sheeran's character and have the same end. Okay. So Ed Sheeran was there because the actress that plays Arya is just a big fan of his music. So is it just like another British rock star is going to be the cameo this season?
Oh, like Coldplay?
Mumford and Sons or something? Yeah. Are they British? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I kind of hope they don't. Like a lot of late in the series shows do this. Like Lost worked in some random cameos in the final. They got Rob McElhenney to play one of random island people.
I just remember that Sophie Turner, isn't she like going to marry Joe Jonas?
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
In real
So
life?
that's my call.
Joe
Joe Jonas
Jonas
is going to show up as like a third Stark-looking, Baratheon-looking, like black-haired type guy.
Wait, what does Joe Jonas play like a post-puberty Rob Aaron at the end? Like, oh my, you age up well up in the area,
up
don't
in
you?
that tower. Yeah,
But he's still like a huge dick
and very sickly still. Yeah, just an attractive sickly.
Yes.
And then what do we got? What do we got, Craven? Here's another question from let it go. Ow. It's like attack me. At Snack Huddleston asks, who's Brienne gonna hook up with, Jaime or Tormund? Oh, I mean, why you got to be one?
Why not both?
Yeah.
I think Jaime's probably the destined way, but man, I hope Tormund gets a piece of the action.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the kind of thing where it's like, if it were a different show, it'd be that thing like Tormund, like, you don't want to die a virgin, do you? You know, that kind of awkward conversation. I mean, yeah, I don't know that she'll hook up with anybody, right? I think
that's shipping too hard. Let's just let her have her own journey where she doesn't have to settle down.
Yeah, I mean, she might not be into men. Right? She
That's
might have
also true.
respect. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
You know,
If
she has
there's
a platonic connection with Jaime.
Yeah.
That may need to be all.
If there's any person that it just would be perfect for, she's already there. It's Podrick. He's the only man that can wield that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Westeros Weekly. Thanks for subscribing to this right here, the new Rockstars channel, but also, again, very important, if you subscribe to us on iTunes to the podcast version, the Westeros Weekly podcast stream. It's not just this show. It's all of our Game of Thrones coverage. It's our theories. It's our Eric's breakdowns that are going to come in. And again, it comes out earlier on the podcast than it does on the YouTube channel, and by like a significant amount. So please, please, please subscribe to that. It also helps us a lot if we can rank. It actually is pretty important for us to support the show. If you ever see us in iTunes podcast, if you go to like all charts and then go to TV and film, it's like a very small group, and then go like hosted by guys named Erik and Filup. As long as we rank high in that, it helps us a lot to support this show. So help us rank and share it with your friends, because new subscribers is how it ranks.
Yes.
Follow us on Twitter at New Rockstars. Tweet those questions to us. You'll be in the show like this was, and it'll be brought by Raven. So it'll stop at your house, get your question.
Yes.
You submit via Twitter too at hashtag Westeros Weekly on those. That's how we find them, how the Raven finds them specifically. Follow me at Fimo and at Philip Molina.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you have two?
That's my Instagram and my Twitter.
Oh, yes. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at EA Voss. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
See you next week. I wet myself.